Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership and leave us a review on iTunes. Also, go ahead and check out our Patreon and YouTube pages. The links are in the podcast description below. On this week's Thoughtful Thursday, what I want to talk about is the growing kind of instances of individual companies doing things that they think are in support of the broader mental health of their people. Specifically, I saw yesterday on LinkedIn that Nike was shutting down its corporate office for a week, giving people time off, and it was done impromptu. So it wasn't like we're going to do this, plan your vacations. It wasn't done to give a vacation. It was classified as a mental health break. So it was a kind of a surprise. We're shutting things down. You're off for a week. And it was done in service of supporting the broader mental health of their employees. And the reason I want to talk about this on this show is because, our background and our experience is in retail leadership. And in a retail environment, it's not as easy to just say, hey, we're shutting things down for a week. And so it got me thinking about the things that need to be done differently from industry to industry, from person to person, that would be in support of this, and how it can't just be like this broad brush approach, but maybe in some cases it can be a broad brush approach. I mean, what do you think about this?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that the broad brush is the conversation about it and understanding that there's a lot going on, and everybody is working through things differently, from work to responsibilities to childcare to health and wellness of us as individuals, family members. There's a lot going on. So I think the broad brush is like continuing to have conversation, continuing to look at different types of ways to work through this, different types of support for the teams. I think, though, to your point about the individuals and industries, there are a lot of industries, even outside of retail. Think of like grocery, think of first responders, think of people that work in, places like power plants and, just places that are of an everyday need from a society standpoint, that again, that maybe they don't have that option. You can't go around and just close a hospital for a week. So I think that, I applaud that there are organizations that are trying lots of different things and lots of different approaches, and some of them are broad and some of them are specific to their industry or to their teams. But I think that from a leadership standpoint, those managers and supervisors and leaders at Nike, I don't know how much of a heads up they got, but it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to, plan this or utilize this. Who knows? But there are leaders in other organizations, same thing, that you got to figure out. Maybe there's something your company is doing that can be helpful. But there are a lot of things that you can do for your team members and your peers that I believe can be more helpful. And that is really staying close to people, having conversations, checking in on them, seeing what's going on, finding out what types of support they may need and what types of resources or benefits that your company may have, or that you might be able to help them out with from a temporary standpoint. So I just think that there is a lot more conversation just in general that should be going on across all organizations, and making sure that people are able to feel good about the work that they're doing and feel focused, and have the support they need for the unique situations they have.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, and I don't want to, and we called out Nike for doing this, and I think it's a positive thing. I don't want to, say anything negative about it. But I want to also put it in the context of that sometimes these things are done, for what the optics of doing it are, for whatever the social or public credit is. And so if I think about the years that I spent in a corporate human resources role, and how if the organization had just said that we're closing for a week, it, depending on the time of year or even just what I was doing at the time, it may or may not be a positive thing for my mental health. If I had been working closely with 3 or 4 different teams throughout the organization, and we had deadlines for certain things that weren't happening during the week that we were supposedly going to be closed, but that were happening the following week or the week after that, having a week off in my mind might be like, wait a minute, this is really stressful for me now, because there's no way that the people who made this decision know the specifics of the individual projects that are happening throughout the organization, and how some of them might not just be able to easily be put on hold. And so I think what this calls out is the need for it to be incredibly individualized. And so to think about this from the perspective of, we know what we want the outcome to be, and we know that if we don't kind of force it a certain way, people won't do it. Meaning if you just say, hey, we're giving you an extra week of vacation, take it whenever you want to, well, that's what people are going to do with it. They're going to take a vacation, they're going to schedule it, and it's going to be just, it's basically free money at that point. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you are trying to increase the awareness around mental health issues, and that's why you're deciding to do this, then it needs to be grounded in whatever that broader outcome is, which is we're trying to better the mental health. And so, this is a tough one for me. How would you do this in a way that is individualized, but that also kind of tips their people's hands a little bit to making sure that they don't just make it be just another thing that they have to do, but rather they actually put it into the context of strengthening their mental health, if that's what the outcome is that you're looking for. So before you answer that, I want to give it up to a word from one of our sponsors. All right, so Lorenzo, if you were implementing something like this and trying to give this kind of benefit to a larger employee base who are involved in different projects, different things, different roles, depending on what their needs are in the organization, how do you make it so they can have this benefit, but they actually use it and it spurs a broader conversation and really helps going towards strengthening mental health?
I think my approach would be to have multiple options for people and for teams. I think that there are some, teams and or individuals that would benefit from the week of just kind of pausing and just getting a chance to kind of get their legs underneath them. I think to your point, there are some teams that would say like, look, we appreciate that, and we definitely will utilize that, but this week is not the best week for that based upon some of the work that we have to do. Then you've got people that are like, you know what? I'd actually prefer to keep the office open because, coming to work is a safe space for me and a place where I can kind of come in and it's good for my mental health. I just think that there's so many different scenarios that can play out that my attempt probably to do that in that space would be like, this is the outcome that we're looking for. We really want to provide some time for everybody in the organization to really get a chance to reset, to kind of, get some relief from maybe all the things that are going on. And then here are the 4 or 5 options that we're providing. And we want you to talk to, your team lead about which one works best for you, and then allow the team leads or the supervisors, the managers, to then work through what option works for which individual person. And yes, that might cause an issue where maybe half the team is like, I want the week off. The other half of the team is like, I'd rather stay and work. Okay. But at the same time, having none of them there, it really stops everything.
Right.
And it's a very broad brush. So again, I applaud any and all efforts to get creative about what can be done with what everybody is going through right now. And potentially, if this is a headquarters thing for Nike, there may be an influence on, locally what's going on in the city or in the state. That may be a reason as to why it would be better for the corporate office to close for a week. I don't know. But I like the idea. I like that people are approaching this and trying different things and kind of going against the typical model that we've seen in the past of just like, in some instances, a lot of companies will just ignore it and hope that it goes away. But there are a lot of organizations that are doing creative things, and I like that a lot. I just think if the outcome that you're looking for is to provide people with something that is going to help them in mental health, then I think that you need to have options for it to allow them to engage in the way that they feel works best for them.
Yeah, I think there's another part of it too that is really, really important, and that's that it can't stop at whatever this is. If the goal truly is increasing the awareness around the importance of mental health of your individual employees, then whatever that week is or that time away, whatever this thing is that we're talking about, it matters nothing compared to whatever the daily actions are that are in support of mental health. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say that the biggest stressor in an employee's life is wondering whether or not they're going to get to work on time at 9 o'clock in the morning because of traffic, because they're the only ones that can drop off their child at school. Maybe a stressor of the employee is that you're transitioning to a work from home environment, and now they feel like they can't get the work done because when they're at home, they're in a different mindset because of everything that happens around the house. Maybe the house is a chaotic place for them, not a calm place for them. And so talking to each individual employee, not just at a team level, but at an individual employee level around what needs they might have from a mental health standpoint, and then doing your best to meet them there. I know companies who have decided to, close down their corporate office space, and that's a very broad brush approach. And I know companies who have decided to everybody's coming back to work, and that's a very broad brush approach. But what if the happy medium is, hey, we're gonna rent a space that is 10% of the size, so that there is a place for employees to come to if you want to. And if you want to work from home, you can work from home. If you want to come to the office, you can come to the office, and you get a little, like almost like signing up for a meeting room, and it can accommodate 10 or 20% of whoever was there, before. And that allows people to not have to even articulate that home might not be a safe place for them, because maybe they don't even feel comfortable saying it, but they just know that they need to be able to be somewhere else other than home in order to work. And so it just really comes down to, if you're a leader of people, I think it's talking to your individual employees, and whatever you do have control over, helping them get to where they need to be. Because if the goal is mental health, the efforts you're taking because of what would be helpful to you, like what you'd like, and you think, oh, this is good for me, that doesn't necessarily mean that those exact same efforts implemented in that way will get the exact same effect for each one of your employees. The outcome's going to be very different for each person.
Absolutely. I really appreciate just that dialogue, and again, providing options for people. I think that's such an important part of this. So with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.